right, good morning, everyone. My name is Jyoti Dugar, and we're here today to talk about how to navigate this wonderful cyber maze on going from ethical hacking roles to becoming a chief information security officer. So who am I and why should you even care? And it's actually a great question because just because I am a CISO myself does not mean you have to listen to anything I have to say. But throughout this presentation, I'm hoping that you'll get bits and pieces that you can use in your daily lives to make a difference for others, as I hope to do for you. So I am a Chief Information Security Officer currently working for the National Institutes of Health. I'm also a holistic wellness coach and specialist. And I'm really passionate about bridging both of those worlds together, the health and wellness and mental health worlds with the technology and cyber fields. So therefore, I call myself a Chief Transformation Officer for corporations as well as for individuals. And I'm also an author, dance director, and I do have 3 wonderful kids. So with that, it's not just to boast about myself in any sort of way. It's just to show you that you can achieve anything that you put your mind to, and it doesn't have to be in one particular area. You could have the analytical side and the creative side all in one. So I was asked to talk about, my path to get to cybersecurity and also my path to get to becoming a Chief Information Security Officer. Well, I'll tell you, everyone has their own path, everyone has their own story, and I'm sure everyone has overcome some sort of challenges in their life, and nothing is really handed to you. So as far as my story, I was kind of born into a traumatic childhood situation, which I was actually able to get out of, as you can see. But it, definitely was not an easy path by any means. So, on top of that, just being a first-generation immigrant in this big country of the United States, and really, I was always drawn to technical fields. Like I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering, and as you can guess, I was one of just a few females in the field. And unfortunately, that situation has not changed much even today. But definitely was not easy. I always felt like I had to prove myself to others right from a young person or a young child into a young adult, and even till today, even though one would think that I've accomplished a lot in the cyber field being an executive, you would be surprised how many times I've felt that I had to really prove myself to others. And what that meant was I really had to find myself, who I was from the inside out, and understanding my own self-worth so that I don't have to feel the need to prove myself to others. And really moving beyond health challenges. I was given 6 weeks to live after the birth of my 3rd baby, unless I got a slew of different surgeries, which I did not get. I actually healed myself through natural healing modalities out there, which I will be covering a little bit later on, which is why I'm really passionate about the holistic wellness and mental health of everyone. But in addition to that, just conquering our normal lives with kids, with spouses, in your home, as well as being in the cyber industry itself is just a stressful and high pressure environment. So what came out of all that was on the right side, achieving my dreams. I always made dreams, and I always put it out there, regardless of any situation that I was in. So even if I was in that traumatic situation, I never stopped dreaming because I knew and I set my intention to get out of these situations, just learn whatever I need to learn in that situation, and I always knew I was going to get out of it. So this is exactly what happened. So I actually was able to heal myself naturally. Everything I dreamed of by the time I turned 40, I actually was able to achieve by the time I turned 40, and now I'm making goals for the next 10 years. I was able to actually learn a lot of these wellness modalities for myself to form my own practice. And now I'm bringing those practices and really transforming the lives of corporate individuals, especially in cyber and technology. So my journey into cyber and beyond, we talked a little bit about this already, but as a woman in a male-dominated field, I felt like I did not really have a mentor per se, because there really wasn't anyone doing what I was doing, and even now. So I really had to just be my own mentor and use my own sense of intuition to guide me. Because as you know, there's plenty of naysayers out there, especially when you're trying to break through the glass ceiling, or whether you're trying to pioneer something. There's always going to be people around you that are either pushing you down or just naysaying everything that you're trying to do, because they don't see it, but you do. So I had to find my own potential within me. But I was lucky enough to have another supervisor at the time. This was about 20 years ago, before cyber was even called cyber, that actually saw potential in me too. And he is the person that actually led me into the cyber field. So ethical hacking was like the first course that I took. And that pretty much was a done deal for me. I loved it. I was really able to identify with it. And I thought maybe I'll do it for a couple years and I'll move on to something else, but I just stuck with it because I just kind of expanded myself, learned different things, did different certifications. And then I realized that, being technical was nice, but I really wanted the people management skills. Like, I love being a leader, I love being a manager. So I actually took the route of cyber leadership. And what I learned from going from ethical hacking into a CISO role, and the whole journey from point A to point B, was that cyber is just such a vast field. There's so much you can do in cyber, which we'll get into in a couple slides later. But it's just it's a very unique field in that if you're technical, there's a job for you. If you're not technical, there's also jobs for you. If you're creative, there's jobs for you. So you could really come into this field from any sort of angle and still find your own value in it, and you can get the value out of cyber and use it in pretty much any role that you might want to move on from. It's also, I had to bring my own skills and experiences into the field as well. So since it's relatively still considered somewhat of a new field, I know it's been around for 20 years, but this is one field that's just constantly growing and constantly evolving. So all of us can bring our own skills from any field that we might have been part of before we go into cyber. That's how cyber is actually evolving and being more diverse. It's not like medical or law, where this is how you do it and that's it. Cyber is just constantly growing. There's so many different ways of doing things, and by you all, if you're first getting into cyber, just bringing you as a whole person can really change how we do things in cyber. I would also suggest keeping your options open for different types of opportunities and really getting yourself out of this box. Because when I got into cyber, I luckily had a supervisor that really saw potential in me, but let's just say you didn't have that. That's okay. Use your own abilities to just get yourself out of this box. Think outside of the box. Look for paid or even volunteer roles. Look for on-the-job training. Maybe if you're a tech admin or a service desk or desktop type of role right now, you can still reach out to your security teams or to the leadership there and just kind of, volunteer some time. Like, hey, can I spend 5-10 hours learning security? Just look for different types of opportunities there. My biggest takeaway was actually expanding my soft skills, which we'll get to in a little bit, but this was key for me because I noticed that there's a lot of tech, cyber folks out there that are just very, very technical. And that's great. There's definitely value in that, but it really does keep you kind of stuck, because once you get to be a cyber leader or a manager or a CISO, we really have to hone in on the emotional intelligence skills, the soft skills, leadership, communications, and everything that comes with just being a good leader. So for me, becoming a CISO, first I had to envision it. So just like anything else in life, if you have to believe in it, you have to visualize it, and then just allow, for lack of better words, the universe to help guide you there. You don't have to plan out every single step. In fact, you probably can't plan out every single step. So just, if that's the role you want to be in, you want to be in a leadership, management, cyber role, or a CISO, then just visualize it, believe in yourself that you can get there, and then just kind of see what comes to you. Opportunities might come to you, people might come to you, and just allow it to happen. And just look beyond perceived limitations. So a lot of folks that I actually mentor women, I actually mentor men as well, and they seem to have a lot of just limitations that they're putting on themselves. And I, for sure, I'm no exception. I, thought, oh, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that. The more limitations you put on yourself, the less you're actually going to achieve your dreams. So there are no limitations. So just kind of remove that hat. We also have to ask for what we want in a job. So this is really crucial for women, which again, we'll come to a little bit later, but just to tackle this for a second. As women, we tend to, most of the time we don't ask for what we want in a job. We kind of just go along with it. We just take the reasons that we're given by our management. But if you don't ask for what you want or what you need, then nobody else is going to do that for you. So it's really crucial that you build up the courage and the confidence and the self-worth within yourself to actually do that. And I noticed that there is no such thing as work-life balance, or, leave your home problems to the side and only think about work when you're at work. That's just impossible to do, because all parts of you are part of you as a whole. So I really had to learn how to just bring my whole self to work, and not be apologetic about that. Like, this is who I am. I am a woman. It's okay to show emotions. You don't have to put on a male mask and pretend like you are a male, especially if you are a woman. And being male as well, like, it's okay if you're a male and you have some emotion. You don't have to be this macho type of personality, which, and the reason I say this is usually that's what you see in cyber. It's like this very strong and really, confident and male personality, which is great for certain situations, but not for everything. And just learning how to communicate effectively. Being able to, being a CISO is actually a very unique role, because you are considered as part of the C-suite, but you're also having to constantly manage your own management, as well as managing your staff and managing people all around you. So it's a very unique role in that you have to know how to speak effectively to all the different roles that you're going to be interacting with. So again, it all comes down to knowing how to lead yourself from within before you can effectively lead others. So, I talked about a little bit about ethical hacking. So, there are benefits in getting certifications. I know EC Council has a ton of certifications like the ethical hacking, and I personally did do the ethical hacking one first. And these are just the different types of roles in security. This is by no means the only roles, but there's just so many different roles that you can possibly look into when you get some technical certifications in place. However, like I said, cyber is not just about having technical skills. You really need to focus on a variety of different skills, especially if you don't want to purely stay on the technical route. If you want to go anywhere near the management or leadership route, we really have to look into what that takes. So yes, being detail-oriented and being technical is part of it, or at least having an understanding of a technology is part of it, but also, collaboration, communication skills, building those relationships up, down, and all around. And also learning a little bit about business as well. So if you don't have an MBA, definitely don't need one, but at least taking like a business course or really like learning about how to do business management, learning a little bit about the finances, because once you're in a CISO role in a large organization or corporation, you really have to figure out, how to be fiscally responsible with the budget that you're given for security, and also being able to loving the act of researching. Cyber is all about researching the latest tools, researching all the technology that you're responsible for securing. And we'll talk a little bit about incident response, and what happens when we go into this incident response mode, but that's definitely an option out there that we have to look into being a CISO. And again, general IT skills, which I'm sure you all are aware of. So my biggest lessons from being a leader in cyber was relationships are so key to being a CISO. It's just, I can't even stress this enough. Because once those relationships are strained or there's some sort of rift, it's super hard to tell your story or to get the funding that you might need, or really to enforce the importance of security on all of your stakeholders. So let's say if you're working for a healthcare organization or a hospital, it's going to be really hard for you to go to a doctor or clinician or a nurse and explain how you want to patch their MRI scanner. They're really not going to get it. They're like, hey, we have these patients, we don't have time for this. So you have to be able to build those relationships and put things in a language that they understand to really drive the importance of security. Sometimes you have to take a little bit of a risk. You have to kind of go out there on a limb and try new and different things. And again, think outside of the box. And we also, when I talked about story, if you're speaking to a CFO, you really don't want to go in there with a ton of like technical, mumbo jumbo limbo out there. You really want to tell the story in a way that speaks to them. Go talk about the financial repercussions of not embedding cyber into the technology and operations. If you're talking to a CEO, put it in a different way. If you're talking to, like I mentioned, a clinician or a nurse or researcher or scientist or whomever your stakeholders are, you really have to prepare on how to talk to them. You can't just have a one-way approach, like this is what I'm going to say to everyone. It's really not going to work. And it's also being able to look at all angles of the situation without judgment and without any sort of biases or your own opinions of it. And what do I mean by that is, everyone has their own experiences and skills. So the same way that you're bringing your experiences to the table, so are they from whatever point of view they're coming from. So a lot of times, when you speak to someone who's not technical or who's in a totally different field, but they're still one of your stakeholders, as cyber professionals, sometimes we just kind of tend to brush them off, like, well, you just have to do what we say, but we don't really care what you say. And that's kind of like the attitude that comes across. We really have to take a step back and try to understand, like, okay, what are they saying? Like, what is it that they're worried about? Like, there's always, if someone's pushing back, then, we have to be able to realize that there's a sense of fear that's coming from them. Like, what are they fearful of? And then we hone in on that and see, well, how can we help them realize their fear, but also maybe help to mitigate that fear by letting them know what can be done. And most of the time, we all try to multitask, or we tend, what happens when you try to multitask is you end up just doing a whole bunch of things haphazardly instead of focusing on one thing and doing that really well. And I know that's really easier said than done, but I do teach this in my programs as well as time management. So I truly recommend blocking off time to do one type of thing at a time. So for example, just taking all of your meetings if possible in a certain time period. Not trying to, do some documentation and check emails and be part of this meeting all at the same time. And the most important key point here is to think of people as your biggest assets. Who are we here to protect? It's not just systems and data. At the end of the day, we're here to protect people. And there's a negative saying in cyber on, people are your weakest link. Like, well, that's only if you empower them to be that. If you actually empower them to be your biggest assets, then that's what they'll be. So what does that mean? So what that means is we have to really take care of our people, not just taking care of them from a budgetary or financial point if you're a business leader, but also taking care of their wellness. And that starts with you, especially if you are a leader right now, it starts with you most definitely. You have to take care of yourself so that you can help others take care of themselves as well. But it can really start at any role. Even if you're just starting out, you can be the catalyst for change. So I talked about incident response. So, the importance of mindset, I cannot really say how important this is in cyber. So when we're constantly dealing with incidents and crises on a daily basis. And what happens when you have an incident is that your brain, your mind kind of goes into this crisis mode. So there's an alarm that comes in, and immediately you go into like this fight, flight, or freeze mode, which is usually used for survival, but your brain doesn't know the difference. So you immediately go into this mode. Unless you've done years of mindset work and you've been practicing that, but most people have not. So you go into this mode of alarm. Then your body's trying to resist that mode, so it's constantly trying to like release that stressor. And that's great if it's a small stressor that, like if your child did something you didn't like and then you immediately get sabotaged. But then your child stops doing that, so now the stressor goes away, so you're back to this calm. But in cyber, that's usually not the case, right? When you have an incident, it's not really just going to, pop up and go away on its own. You usually have to do a whole lot of digging, try to find out what happened, what are the lessons learned, what do you need to do to contain the situation. So you tend to stay in this crisis mode for a long period of time, maybe several days, sometimes several weeks, depending on the nature of the incident, or there could be multiple incidents that are back to back. And this is on top of your normal day job. So, all of these things add up, and then you just go into a state of exhaustion. So when we look at that, what are the, just look at the common stressors that you might be facing being in cyber leadership. One, you're probably connected to your work 24/7 because, hackers and adversaries are not going to stop just because you want to go on vacation or you, are taking a day off, right? It's never ending work. Most likely you're working more than 40 hours a week, and then you're constantly dealing with incidents, technology breaks, any sort of breaches. And most of us have a lack of resources. I don't know any CISO out there that would say they have plenty of staff and they don't know what to do with them. And, of course, funding. And the key thing is here, even a small mistake or mishap can lead to a massive impact on the organization. So it's not something to take lightly, like, oh, I just made a small mistake and no one's going to notice. It's a small misconfiguration of a server or a firewall. It could lead to an entire breach of the organization and reputation damage and all kinds of stuff. And a lot of times, depending on which organization you're a CISO of or cyber leader of, there's a lot of eyes on you. Most likely you're in a high pressure, high visibility environment. So this is not something to take lightly. And that's just your work part of your life. Then you have all the other parts of your life. You have home pressures, your family, your spouse, your kids, You know, maybe your financial stability might be in question. And since you're working so much, maybe you even have limited social connections. You probably aren't prioritizing your own health and wellness, and you're just always wired. You're just on the go, go, go all the time. So we really don't prioritize ourselves, especially in the cyber world. So let's actually talk about what happens then. So, you know, all of us are looking to, especially in technology and cyber, we're always trying to increase our success rates. Or if you're a vendor, you're trying to increase your sales rates, you know, by selling to the other organizations. We can't do any of that if we don't manage our own expectations within ourselves. So this chart over here, I took that from the Ask and It's Given book by Esther Hicks. And this is basically an emotional guidance scale. So what happens is, you know, that middle line, that grayish line, that's kind of the neutral, calm state that everyone aims to get to, really. But if you look at this, that's just really the, that's, sorry, I'm not sure why is this happening. Okay, there we go. That's just really the minimum state. So everything below that is what happens when, if you don't manage your expectations, it leads to disappointments. Then you get frustrated why your expectation wasn't met. Then it starts going down this downward spiral. And it's really hard to get yourself back up to at least that calm state unless you practice mental health, mindset, and wellness techniques throughout the day. So what we really want to aim for is to go upward in that blue spiral upward. So a lot of people make mistakes of, you know, if you're all the way down in the red spiral or in the red zone of the spiral, they try to immediately jump up to the purple and blue parts, and that's just not going to happen. Your brain is not going to go process things that quickly that you're going to go from, let's say, guilt or insecurity all the way up to like joy and freedom. So what I teach people is to just take one step at a time. And there's different ways to do this, which I cover in my programs. You know, just be happy by taking one step at a time. And then little by little, we can move our way up. But by trying to jump too fast, too quickly, what we're actually doing is we're going even faster down the downward spiral. So here are some easy life hacks that I put together for you. We won't have too much time to go over every single one on this call, but you can surely look at the slides. So the key one here that I recommend everyone do today, starting today itself, is take quick vacations throughout the day, every day. So what do I mean by that? Actually take your calendar, you know, whatever calendars you use for your work and for in your personal life, and put it on your schedule 5 minutes at the end of every hour throughout the day, throughout your waking hours. Obviously can't do it when you're sleeping. So, and not just take those 5 minutes to go to the bathroom or, you know, get a cup of water. Sure, you could do that, but it's actually using those 5 minutes effectively to rejuvenate yourself throughout the day. And what happens is that carries the same effect of actually going on vacation, you know, once or twice a year. And most people don't do this, so they just wait for that vacation to come, and maybe it'll come, maybe it won't come, and for the rest of the time, they're just getting really stressed out on their daily lives. So just take that 5 minutes out of every hour. At most, I would recommend 5 minutes out of every 2 hours. If you really can, even just stick with the 1 hour. And you could do different things like breathing exercises, just meditate for like 2-3 minutes, you know, visualize your vacation. So again, we don't have time to go into all the different things, but that's the key life hack that I would point you to on this slide. So let's switch a little bit to the role that diversity plays in cyber. So we talked a little bit about women and how there's still a lack of women in cyber. But what we need to understand is it's okay to think differently or even to be different. That's what actually increases creativity and just expansion. So just having a diverse workforce in cyber, it really gives you the ability to take all kinds of different opinions and different avenues and form a much more effective decision. And again, of course, then people are happier and that causes more productivity. So, by diversity, I'm going to focus on one particular aspect of diversity, which is basically the gender gap in cyber. So what I did a lot of research and I've went to a lot of different schools, starting from a grade school level, where I was trying to figure out like why are we still having this problem? When I joined 20 years ago in cyber, we had the same problem. And then 20 years later, we're still having the same problem. And I've heard a lot of different reasons for this. When I try to ask my own organizations, they're like, hey, we need to start increasing the diversity. What I hear is like, well, yeah, we would love to, but we don't really see too many women apply to the jobs. So then I started digging a little bit further, and then I found out, well, women don't apply for these jobs sometimes because they feel confident when they meet 100% of the expectations or criteria, versus for men, even if they meet 20% of the criteria, they're already applying for these jobs because they feel like, hey, I have a 20% chance of getting in, so I might as well apply. So I've been working a lot with women and mentoring them on just allowing them to just go for it, not let their fears stand in their way. And they also have a need to connect with people and collaborate on solutions and ideas, not just in the work life, but also in the home life, where men are wired differently. They're on a mission. If there's a problem, they just want to solve it and move on. And they don't really ask for, permission per se, or they don't have a need to run it by, a lot of folks. They're like, oh, yep, this is a solution they came up with, so we're just going to do this and we're going to move on. And sometimes that rubs off on women a little in the wrong way if they don't understand how men are wired. Like they tend to think that this happens on purpose when it really doesn't. And women they really enjoy the journey. They like the path or the process to achieving a goal. And if men don't understand that, then they just want to achieve the goal. That's it. There's no journey. They don't really appreciate or really acknowledge the journey to get there. So a lot of these things are just how women and men are wired in general. But the more we don't understand it, then there's a lot of friction that happens sometimes, where you think someone's doing something purposely when they're really not. And I used to think that imposter syndrome only happened for women, but it was actually found out that it happens both in male and female. It has more of an impact on women because they're already, going through a lot of different innate wiring in themselves. And then now they have the imposter syndrome on top of it, which really gets to a core value in them, which is self-worth. So that's why they'd rather not apply for a job than to apply for it. And even after they get into a job, and I've faced this myself, even after I became a CISO, I still doubted myself, like, oh, how did I get this position? Oh, I was actually in the pool with all of these other people and they have more experience than me. So why did they hire me instead? So it really does take a lot of the inner work to move past that. Again, we're not going to every one of these, but I'm sure if you're a woman out there, you can probably relate to at least one of these types of imposter syndromes. Or even if you're a male, you could probably relate to one of these. And just wanted to drive the importance, like it does take all of us. Cyber especially, it's just such an expansive field. don't be afraid to volunteer your time. If you're only looking for paid opportunities, you might be cutting yourself short on all the opportunities that lie out there that you could probably just volunteer just to get the experience and then figure out like where you want to take it from there. And contact, if you're just starting out, don't be afraid to contact your role models or your leaders that inspire you. Maybe ask for informational interviews, ask for mentoring, and you have to invest in yourself. So I encounter a lot of situations where people don't want to pay for mentoring sometimes. And I used to do free mentoring, complimentary mentoring for the longest time. And what I noticed was that I myself was getting burnt out because I was so passionate about helping the other person, but the other person wasn't taking responsibility for themselves. So it became not a win-win for either of us. But if you're trying to expand yourself and grow, don't be afraid to invest in your own career, in yourself, in your wellness, in whatever you need to grow. And really try to get those well-rounded soft skills, because especially if you're trying to move away from being purely technical into more of a leadership management role, you really, really need to focus on the soft skills, the people skills, the relationship building skills, and the emotional intelligence skills. And just explore other fields too. It's all connected. I've had people in my team that came from totally different fields out there, and I was able to teach them cybersecurity. So now they're managers in the field. So you can come from any field out there into cyber, and there's always a role for you. So one of the last things I want to say is if you are if you're a lead in your company, or if you're an executive and you're short on cyber stuff, just look into the different options that are out there. Like I was telling the folks that are trying to get in, but you being a business owner or being an executive in a business, open up opportunities for internships, paid or unpaid, or offering a detail or short-term or long-term type of assignments, and really looking out for your people. If you see potential in someone who's in a different team or different department, just reaching out to them like, hey, I see there's a lot of potential and you have a lot of skills in what you're doing. Would you like to come and try cyber out for like a few hours a week? And workforce development, again, I'm going to just go back to the wellness piece of this, and really bringing the wellness to the workplace, not just in the form of exercise or most of the common workplace wellness only deal with exercise, or it's like mindfulness or yoga. So a lot of the programs that I bring to the table are really focused on at a deeper level. So it's really transformational programs. And if you don't have a diversity or inclusion program, is super important in any organization. So we can really try to, build up the diversity in cyber soon. So with that, thank you so much for being here for the entire presentation. I'm really thankful for being invited. And if you're interested in learning more on my coaching or transformational programs that I offer individuals as well as corporations, feel free to visit jyotidugar.com. Again, that's www.jyotidugar.com. Thank you so much.